With what seems like every modern console out there focusing on online multiplayer experiences, it's refreshing that the Nintendo Switch has such a strong focus on local multiplayer experiences. Heck, the system itself technically comes with 2 controllers, and if you get a second pair of Joy-Con, you're ready for some 4-player action. While there are certainly fan favorites like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Smash Ultimate, and Mario Party, today I want to bring a spotlight to a handful of lesser known and talked about third-party games with local multiplayer modes that I've had some good fun with. Just like with the first-party titles I mentioned, the games I'm talking about today all allow for the use of a single sideways Joy-Con per player, but all of these games are less than half the price, at most, of a standard retail Switch game. Although the last one does require a bit of additional hardware, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Also, I've deliberately picked 5 games of different genres, so as to have a good sense of variety, and so there should be at least one game that interests everybody. Heck yeah, I love esports. Art of Balance is a physics-based puzzle game that sees you placing stones of different shapes onto precariously placed platforms suspended over a pool of water. If any of the stones fall into the water or onto the table below, you fail. All 5 modes in this game feature multiplayer. Yes, even the arcade mode, which you're supposed to play solo, you can play in co-op with others. But the mode I've sunk the most time into is Tower Tumble. This mode sees 2 to 4 players taking turns choosing one of 3 stones and placing it into the play area. Play continues until one player causes a stone to fall, in which case every player except the one who made the stone fall gets a point, although there are a finite amount of stones in each round, and if all of them are successfully placed, the round ends in a draw. This is basically a Jenga mode, and just like Jenga, this mode can certainly incite yelling from those playing due to moves that other players have done, or the game straight up putting you in near unwinnable situations. Despite that, it's still super fun. You can also duel or squad up in 2 teams in Swift Stacker, where the first player or team to successfully place all of their stones wins. This is also the only mode to feature online play, both with friends and with random matchmaking, as well as letting you play on multiple consoles locally, each one with a copy of the game. Endurance sees up to 4 players teaming up to attempt to clear as many stages as they can with only 3 lives. Finally, Infinity is relatively self-explanatory. Players cooperate to place as many stones as possible before one falls to its demise. Honestly, for being a smaller digital title, it's well worth the money for both its single-player and multiplayer offerings. There's even an achievement system, and you can play with motion controls. I just don't recommend them though, as trying to make small and precise movements is near impossible, seeing as the motion controls in the Joy-Con and Pro Controller seem to reject any motion input if it's below a certain threshold of speed. The stick control is vastly superior in this instance. A small quirk about this game if you're playing with a dual Joy-Con grip is that, upon booting up the game, it turns that dual grip into 2 single Joy-Con. This does get ironed out when progressing through the title screen and loading up one of the in-game controller setup screens, as you have to press L and R to get past both of those, but you honestly don't need 2 Joy-Con for this game. Everything is perfectly accessible with just a single Joy-Con. Overall, out of the games I'll be talking about today, I feel that this is the most accessible one, seeing as outside of the Swift Stacker mode, it doesn't require twitch reflexes, or even that much mental energy to begin with. It's kinda like bowling, where you and a group of buds can just boot up some Tower Tumble while you kick back and just chat about whatever. Have you ever yearned to experience the thrills of speedrunning a game without committing to a full run? Then the 2D platformer 10-second run returns is likely what you're looking for. There's a collection of 100 fast-paced stages that all only give you 10 seconds to complete them, and touching an obstacle, falling off the stage, as well as letting the timer hit 0 results in a failure. You have a straightforward moveset. Move with the stick or D-pad if you're using a dual Joy-Con or Pro-Con, use either the right or down face buttons to jump, and hold either the top or left face buttons to run, and yes, you can wall jump. While there is a single-player mode where each stage has 3 stars for you to collect along with getting to the exit in time, you can play all the stages in split-screen multiplayer, and while you can play with 2 to 4 players on a TV, there's a special versus mode if you're going head-to-head with a buddy. This is optimized for tabletop mode, as pressing plus or minus on the course selection screen rotates each player's half. Then you just put the Switch in between both players and boom, an experience that's vaguely reminiscent of those tabletop arcade machines. Honestly, I wish more split-screen Switch games would let you do this when playing 2 players in tabletop. It's such a clever idea. Granted, there's no real definitive target score of wins that you can go for, meaning you can either agree with your fellow player on a target number of wins, or not. I mean, I'm not your dad. Unrelated, but I've actually 100%ed all of the stages, save for these last 4. Maybe some week where I have some extra time, I might grind these out just to finish what I've started, you know? I feel that this game is more meant for those with an intermediate skill level when it comes to games, as younger or more inexperienced players may become frustrated at the level of skill needed, although those with an advanced skill level may still get something out of this game's latter stages, as getting all 3 stars from some of these stages may take a hit to your self-confidence with how many times you have to restart them. But also, with each stage only being 10 seconds long, if you want to go all completionist and get every stage's star, you're only having to refine 10 seconds of gameplay at a time, so having to restart over and over again doesn't feel like a detriment like it does in other 2D platformers. Do you want to play a game that just makes you feel stupid? Then the reflex-reliant logic game of Not, a brainbuster, might be up your alley. In the single-player mode, you go through stages where you must complete a series of rapid-fire logic-based commands, where you must pay attention to both the grammar as well as the color coding of said commands, and move up, down, left, or right accordingly. So if you're told to not go down, going any other direction other than down is correct. As the namesake implies, you can run into double and even triple negatives to throw you off. The triple negative should be treated as if it was just a single negative, whereas the double negative cancels itself out, so if you see something like not red, then you should choose a red path. I wanna say that's as complex as it goes, but it can get way harder than that. So in the versus mode, you can choose between 4 difficulty levels, and I think most people would really only be able to handle normal or hard. For fun, I decided to load up Extreme, as that's at the same difficulty as the end stages for the single player mode and... Okay, pause real fast. I'm about to show you a real command I was given, and you'll have 5 seconds to guess the correct answer. Ready? Go! So because there's the circle with the cross, I think that's signifying you need to go the exact opposite of what the text is saying, and because it's saying not to go up, you'd go up then down. Granted, if you have no prior experience with the single-player mode, playing at normal is still accessible to just about everyone, with a touch of prior knowledge being ideal. Along with being able to use the stick to make your moves, you can also just use the face buttons. This is actually what I prefer using myself, as I not only have to move my thumb to make a selection, but then press that button. I found myself doing Twitch inputs without really thinking with the stick, and that's cost me in some scenarios. Given the fact that this is actually a port of a mobile game, yeah, this is accessible to just about everyone. But unless someone you're playing with is experienced in the harder stages of the single-player modes, I'd say sticking to normal, maybe hard is the best call. Okay, I know this list is supposed to be underrated games, but I think playing Rocket League with 3 other players all on the same system is such a genius idea. For the 2 of you who don't know, Rocket League is a team-based esports title where players control what are basically jet-propelled go-karts in a game of soccer, or football for those living outside of the land of the free and home of the best fast food restaurant. Don't at me. While you can play online, both in a squad of friends, even across several different platforms, or with complete randos, you can sync up multiple controllers and play split screen against each other. Or you can even go online on the same system to go against randos. And no, you don't need Switch Online to do this. For just doing offline split screen, you have to go into the custom games page, then exhibition. While you can play with single Joy-Con, I recommend playing in a dual Joy-Con grip, or with a Pro Controller if you can. You have access to a right stick to let you tilt the camera, and clicking said right stick lets you look behind, both of which are inaccessible with a single Joy-Con. So because of that, I advise having everyone either use single Joy-Con or dual Joy-Con grips / Pro Controllers just to make things fair. While you're actually playing, there is some noticeable degradation in the resolution, but it still seems to be at a near 60 frames per second if you have your video settings set to favor performance, which for most people in casual play should just be fine. Also, because the game doesn't really do UI scaling super well, Many UI and menu elements may appear much smaller than they would playing solo, but in an actual match, it's not that bad. With this game being free to play on all platforms, I'd say at least giving it a go the next time you have gamer friends and family over is kind of a no-brainer. But also, because it is free to play, if you're visiting folks who have their own Switches, you can play up to 8 players via local wireless at no cost. Go to Play, Custom Games, Private Match, and choose Host Local Lobby if you're the one hosting, and everyone else can join with the join button. That way, everyone can have their own screen. And no, this doesn't use a wireless router as a central access point to connect to the other consoles, but rather, the systems are directly connecting to each other. So if you wanted to, I don't know, play some 4v4 matches on a camping trip out where there's no cell service or Wi-Fi, it is totally doable. Plus, if not everyone's games are on the same update version, you don't even need Wi-Fi to update. Just have everyone press plus or minus on the game's icon on the home screen, and under Update, select Match Version with local users. Have everyone jump into the same group, and the systems with the newest version will send the update data to the Switches without said data. And it doesn't matter who's hosting said room versus joining in regards to which system is sending data to what other systems. All of that comparison happens automatically. Anywho, at this point, if you're still sleeping on Rocket League, you are missing out. While there certainly is a high skill ceiling, you can still have a great time casually with folks who already have prior gaming skill. So while Rocket League is better when everyone has their own system, Pac-Man Vs., which is part of Namco Museum on Switch, requires 2 systems for the maximum effect. This game originally came as a pack-in title with a couple of GameCube games, and with that, you had to use the GameCube to Game Boy Advance cable connected to a GBA for one of the controllers. That's because of what this game is. One player plays as Pac-Man on, in this instance, a second Switch, whereas everyone else is chasing them down as ghosts on the television. The ghosts only get to see what's immediately around them, but the Pac-Man player gets to see the whole maze, which is why 2 systems are required. The ghost that captures Pac-Man then becomes Pac-Man, and those 2 players swap controllers. So the former Pac-Man hands the handheld switch to the ghost that caught them, and the ghost receives the handheld switch to then score points and ultimately reach the point target amount to win the game. However, if a detached controller is connected to the second switch, it's then used in a tabletop mode, and instead of passing controllers around, you just end up passing the console around while you still use the same controller during the whole game. Gaining control of Pac-Man is the key to victory, seeing as that's really the only way to score points. And if you don't know how to play Pac-Man, you're likely way too young to even be on the internet, so leave. That being said, there's actually a long-standing issue with this game where any controllers that aren't Player 1 are not properly recognized. To fix this, press R on the Player 1 controller to open the suspend menu, and tab over to Controls. At the Change Controller option, flick the stick over to however many people are playing, but -1, seeing that one person will be on the second switch. Press A, sync the controllers that you need, and you're good to go. And no, you don't need 2 full copies of Namco Museum to play this, but rather just 1. On the second Switch, search up Namco Museum on the eShop and find the free multiplayer version and download it, and you're good to go. Granted, with this free multiplayer version, you can only use it as the Pac-Man screen, as the version with the full copy is docked to the TV for the Ghost's view. One thing regarding the gameplay, I found that playing on maps with only 2 power pellets is not that fun, as basically everyone that I've played this game with has puppy guarded them, making the game basically unwinnable. So I recommend playing on either the Frantic Forest, RIP Park, Manic Manor, or the original Maze. And if your friends are still puppy guarding said power pellets, maybe find some better friends. There is an arguably better version of Pac-Man Vs. on the DS as part of that system's Namco Museum, so if you still have some DS's or 3DS's kicking around, maybe try tracking down a copy. I think it's the better version, in part because everyone has their own physical screen to look at thanks to DS Download Play, and also that version's OST is way more boppin' than the GameCube and Switch's OST. There is a single system mode for up to 3 players, where you only ever control ghosts and are aiming to catch an AI-controlled Pac-Man over and over again, but it's not the intended experience, as long as you have the extra hardware for it. This is a fantastic experience for just about everyone, seeing as you really only need a stick to play. Okay, I know the title says 5 games, but Ultimate Chicken Horse shouldn't be overlooked either. If you're unaware, UCH is basically competitive Mario Maker, where you're not just racing to the end of a 2D platforming course, but also placing down platforms and obstacles in between attempts to try and trip up your opponents. You score points based on how quickly you get to the goal comparative to how quick your opponents are, as well as if any of the traps you set knocked anyone out. But if everyone makes it to the goal, no points are awarded, so you gotta make it difficult enough to where at least one person messes up in order to score points. This game is still getting free updates, with new content to this day. You can even make your own custom maps, and it's highly customizable in terms of the rule set. And also, if you don't have enough controllers for everyone to have their own, you can go to the shared controller couch, and just pass around the controller when it's someone's turn. It's a really fun and chaotic time for those with some basic experience in 2D platformers. There's even online play both between other Switch users, but it's also cross-platform supported, and you can play with both friends and randos. So there you go, 6 Switch games with local multiplayer that I recommend giving a shot. While games like Smash and Mario Party are great, playing something outside of your comfort zone once in a while is a great character building exercise. Or just go back to playing your Smash Brothers. I mean, I'm not your dad.